So let's start with the Corona. Corona effect on economy. So we are talking about Indian economy.
Indian economy. First of all, due to lockdown, there was shutdown of the economic production. So manufacturing jobs were lost. Manufacturing production was lost. In the first quarter, there was 23.7% loss of economy, and even today, it is being argued that after 2 years of it, only 2% of economy will grow. Second was the loss of services. It is argued that because of work from home, the efficiency reduced of services. Third was the farming. There was a dysfunction in the sale of the agriculture, but despite that, 3.9% of agri economy grew. So the three major impacts of Corona on Indian economy.
Okay. A couple of days back, Haryana government reserved 75% of the job for the locals.
Yes.
And most of the industries, it's either in Manesar or in Gurgaon. So what effect will it have on job opportunities, employment area, and effect of other states also?
Sir, because production in manufacturing requires lot of skilled and unskilled labor, and India is struggling from the problem of unemployment. 75% was given. That it will lead to, first of all, there will be efficiency loss because we don't know that skilled or unskilled employment labor that is needed is available. Second, it will reduce the investment in the state because there will be industries which will be more reserved to invest in a state where we don't know the workforce is available or not. So these will be the two impacts.
Okay. Couple of days back, Chief Justice of India, he was in the news because of certain observations. Okay, are you aware of those observations?
Sir, I don't, because there were a lot of them. Can you give me a bit of example?
A couple of days back, just 2-3 days back.
I don't recall it.
Okay. What is Vivad Se Vishwas scheme?
Sir, it is a scheme of indirect taxation where the legacy dispute of indirect tax will be resolved just by giving penalty. There will be no criminal defamation, and after dissolving that indirect dispute, further action will not be taken against the individual or the company.
Okay. What is Prime Minister Awas Yojana?
Sir, it is basically housing for all by 2022. It has two components, Awas Yojana Gramin and Awas Yojana Urban. So in the Awas Yojana Rural, in Himachal Pradesh, 1.3 lakhs will be given to every individual who is beneficiary. The beneficiary will be the list of beneficiary will come from the socio-economic census of 2011.
Okay. What is affordable housing?
Sir, it is basically what we call as low income housing. It is basically a future concept for the housing problem of India, where we will use cheap cheap labor and minimal amenities in the construction of housing, so that house will become affordable to everybody who doesn't have any house.
What is India's ease of doing business? What has been done by the government to improve it, to maintain it?
Recently, 63 was the rank of India in the ease of doing business. So first step was taken was insolvency and bankruptcy code. So in which there is a insolvency tribunal and debt recovery tribunal. Two tribunals were started. Second was the port clearance was reduced to 48 hours. And thirdly, the government has recently implemented GST. Indirect taxation India became a single market. And fourthly, the government is actively pursuing the courts to resolve the dispute so that the ranking also improves.
Okay. Can you tell me the names of the 3 laws which have been passed by the central government? Yes, I want the names.
Of the farm laws?
Yeah.
First is the farmer produce.
Basically, I don't recall the name. What is midday meal scheme?
Sir, it is basically a scheme for nutrition providing to the students in the government schools. where a specific calories decided by every state has been given to the students for their nourishment and nurture.
So, what is malnutrition and undernutrition?
So malnutrition can include both overnutrition and undernutrition, whereas undernutrition means deficiency of those micronutrients and nutrients.
I was reading in your form that you lived in Jalandhar for a while.
Yes.
How long was that?
4 years.
4 years. Have you heard of Harbalab Fair?
No, ma'am.
Can you tell me something about the disaster profile of the country?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, India is vulnerable to many disasters. Earthquake. So almost 68% of India is vulnerable to earthquakes and droughts. 40% of India's croppable area is vulnerable to droughts. And in addition to that, there is chemical, biological, and nuclear disaster near the nuclear sites.
Tell me some area specific. Just broadly, I don't want too much detail, but like broadly, which area is prone to earthquakes, which area is prone to...
The earthquake area prone to the area near the Himalayas, so the Himalayas belt. Second is the Delhi and adjoining area. Third in Maharashtra, the Latur and adjoining area. And in addition to that, northeastern India is also prone to earthquakes. So for the floods, the northern Bihar and the Terai region of Bihar and the Terai region of UP is also vulnerable to floods. The regions of valleys in the Himalayas are vulnerable to floods. And if we go in the lower areas, the cities in the modern days because of urban floods are vulnerable. So recently Hyderabad, before that Chennai, these areas are vulnerable to floods. And in the area of droughts, the area of dry deciduous vegetation, that is the Vidarbha region, Saurashtra region of India, are vulnerable to droughts. And then there is tsunami. Tsunami in the eastern coast of India is more vulnerable, especially the Odisha area, whereas western is also vulnerable. We have seen in 2017 in Gujarat the tsunami came. The cyclones came, and in tsunami it depends upon the whole coastal line is vulnerable to that.
You just said that the eastern coastline is more prone to flooding.
To cyclone because we have that north, what we say is that trade winds are, forgetting the thing. It's because of that, I can't recall it, sorry ma'am.
Nonetheless, no problem. Okay, another thing. So we were talking about the Himalayas right now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you know a little bit about the orogeny of the Himalayas as to how they were formed.
Yes, ma'am.
See, they're fold mountains. We all know
Yes.
they're fold mountains, right? Most of the fold mountains we have in the world are volcanic, right? But here in India, we don't find any volcanoes. Can you think of a reason why?
In India, we don't have volcanoes.
Himalayas don't have volcanoes. I mean, we don't have volcanoes in the Himalayas, right? Why do you think that is?
I'm unable to recall it.
You've read about the all these meetings that we keep having about the environment and ecology,
Yes,
right? Heard of the Stockholm Conference?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about the Stockholm Conference? What is the significance? When was
It
it?
was
Anything?
1972 Stockholm Conference.
Okay, yes, I'm talking about.
Ma'am, it basically gave the concept of sustainable development, and a Brundtland committee report was published by it. So it is regarded as a genesis of the future UNFCCC, and the future climate change activities that we are right now doing are the result of that Stockholm Conference.
As I can see your that you mentioned that you are from business background family. No?
Yes.
So your family owned your own factory, a small scale factory. So can you tell me the opportunities of industrial development in Himachal Pradesh?
So first of all, because Himachal Pradesh has a lot of forest-based and raw material, so we have a lot of potential in the forest-based industries like the Biroza, Katha, and other industries. And second is the fact that because Himachal relatively has a skilled labor force because of high literacy, so we have more opportunities for skill-based like BPOs and all these kind of things.
So what steps has been taken by Himachal government as far as this skill-based industry is concerned?
Sir, Himachal Pradesh started Himachal Pradesh Kaushal Vikas Nigam. So it is giving skilled employment to the youth of the country, youth of the state. It is being targeted that by 2022, 1 lakh of the youth population will be given training. Second is we have started B vocational, Bachelor of Vocation in 12 colleges. And thirdly, the government has tie-up with the industries through Himachal Pradesh Kaushal Vikas Nigam to give industry-relevant subjects in the degree courses.
Okay, Himachal Pradesh is also well known for salt mining.
Yes.
Do you have any idea?
They are, I think, they're in Darang salt mines of Mandi, Darang
Tell me
area.
something about its history and what is the present status of these mines.
Sir, basically these are under the rule, in the princely times. They
Are
were,
we harnessing these mines nowadays?
say, according to my knowledge, they are not
Okay.
because of environmental reasons. But it was being argued that they should be utilized.
Okay, Himachal Pradesh has its own temple architecture style. No? Have you heard about Kathakuni style?
No, sir. No.
Okay, tell me the temple architecture types in Himachal Pradesh.
Sir, first of all is the Indo-Aryan influence Nagara, and then there is dome-shaped architecture, and third is the local Satluj Valley. Then is the Pagoda style.
Can you tell me the example of Satluj Valley style?
There is Bhima Kali Mandir, and then
Where is
there
Bhima Kali?
it's in Sarahan, and Pagoda and Pagoda style. I'm not able to recall all of these.
Is there Pantru style?
Yes, sir.
Can you recall the name of any Pantru temple?
So Pantu temple is that temple in Mandi, Prasya temple of Mandi, Pagoda style. So, I'm unable to recall, sorry.
Okay, it's a very personal question. I'm giving you the three names. One is Bill Gates, another is Mark Zuckerberg, and third is Steve Jobs. So what do you think who has brought disruptive changes as far as the society is concerned?
So everybody in their time have brought it. So for example, for our generation, I think Mark Zuckerberg is very much influential because literally broke the barrier of interaction between us. In the same way, the influence of Bill Gates is even more because the modern day banking revolution and all those computer related revolution are because of it. So and Steve Jobs also, I think Steve Jobs bought a revolution which was a niche of revolution because the Apple is right now associated with glass, and still now I think that to call Steve Jobs a disruptor would be if the Apple become a mass commodity like Microsoft or Facebook. So I think Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg were the more influential than.
Are you in the habit of watching TV channels?
Not really because today Netflix and all those sort of stuff. So
Okay, so you don't watch English news channels and others.
No, not really.
Who is your famous anchor or journalist?
Of English news channel.
Yeah.
I think there is Mehdi Hassan of Al Jazeera. He's very
Okay, I'm talking to Indian news channels.
So for Indian news channel, I
Yeah.
think that
Everybody is good at it, but you have to name one.
of English, I
Yeah.
think Rajdeep Sardesai
Why?
because he talks
He talks?
slowly,
Okay.
doesn't shout that much, so you can listen to what he is saying.
Okay. So he's your famous.
I don't literally watch news that much because I think more importantly, I actually read the newspaper, so I don't think that there's purpose of spending an hour on watching it.
But second thing is he is the son of a famous cricketer also. His father was a very famous cricketer, Sardesai at that time. Okay. What is Sagarmala and Bharatmala?
So basically, the infrastructural projects in the Sagarmala, we are focusing on port-led development.
Yes.
In the Bharatmala, we are focusing on road development around. It's like to have a road infrastructure on the borders of the India, so that
Not throughout the country. Bharatmala is not throughout the country.
not on the border states, only in the border states.
Okay.
So mostly the border BRO and. It's around the borders. For example, it will be in the coastal areas on the borders. only the border areas of the state.
That means there will be more connectivity as far as the infrastructure of the ports is concerned.
Yes.
Okay. So who is the Minister for Shipping and Highways and Transport?
Nitin Gadkari.
Nitin Gadkari. He made a statement a couple of months back that these are two different schemes, but Sagarmala and Bharatmala. But it will be like Varmala. You know, they want to make it a garland out of it. Okay, that's very good.
So, do you think that India's first neighborhood first policy is a successful story for Indian concern?
So, I think in the longer, if you look at in the broader perspective, in the so it is a successful thing because India has a hegemonistic relationship with its neighbor, but in the recent times, it is in the strains. So, for example, in 2015, after the constitution of Nepal was passed, India revolted against it, and the blockage was established. So, India's relations with the Nepal got strained, and if you look at in the south, the Sri Lanka. Recently, the Sri Lanka decided to cancel the eastern corridor, eastern terminal of that Colombo port. So that was, I think, a straining relationship. And if you look at in Pakistan, we are still not on the very much on the talking terms. But if you look at in the broader perspective, the things look bit good, better than what we think.
So, mention 2 or 3 good things which are happening.
So recently, like we have given the ceasefire agreement with Pakistan on 2003 ceasefire regulations, and we have given the Imran Khan airspace to travel to Sri Lanka. And recently in the news, it was the news of High Commission of Sri Lanka that Sri Lanka decided that the western terminal of that Colombo port will be given to Adani ports. So these are the good things. In the longer run, definitely it will yield its result. But like any other scheme, it will have its up and downs.
Do you think that India is getting closer to ASEAN and BIMSTEC country at the cost of SAARC?
So basically, the ASEAN and BIMSTEC have a common members like SAARC.
What is the major motive behind?
So basically, it's to create a SAARC minus Pakistan kind of a scenario in the case of BIMSTEC. In the case of ASEAN, it's more like we need an economic boost of that ASEAN countries to uplift our northeastern region primarily, and Indian region, India as a whole.
So what is the major difference between SAARC and BIMSTEC?
So basically, SAARC is more of a socio-economic and cultural grouping, whereas BIMSTEC up till now is only related to economic activities. It's more of an economic grouping, whereas SAARC was more of a historic relationship with it. So we argue that SAARC and the kind of diplomatic energy we have put it in the SAARC is very high. So we have SAFTA agreement, although not being passed, but a draft is there. So we have a lot of, and the SAARC satellite was recently launched in 2017 by our Prime Minister. And even during the COVID times, we have conveyed a SAARC conference. So this the diplomatic energy we have put it in SAARC is very huge compared to BIMSTEC.
Okay, India has a diplomatic partnership with many countries, but nowadays it seems that we are reviving all these treaties. We are getting into comprehensive strategic partnership. What is the difference between strategic partnership and comprehensive strategic partnership?
It's basically a level up in the strategic partnership. So as we know that today India is also an economic power and geographical power and geopolitical power. So every country wants to leverage best out of India, and India wants to do the same. So we are moving in the direction of more close relationship with various countries.
Could you tell me the name of the few countries with which India has
Comprehensive strategic.
got this partnership? Comprehensive strategic.
We have this with Russia, we have this with the USA, and we have this with Japan and with France.
Okay, I get it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.